Dr. Phil Brewer and others pass out printed bulletins in front of Yale New Haven Hospital each week, trying to awaken support among medical personnel for doctors and medical personnel in Gaza and for the Palestinian people generally. I noticed this week an article in his bulletin about a terrible problem in trying to treat a particular medical condition in Gaza, and we'll talk about that. Good afternoon.
Hey, Stanley. Thanks for having me.
So you write about a child who has a creeping paralysis. If a doctor sees that among a child in the United States, what does he or she do?
In the U.S., when you see a child who has a very concerning symptom that could possibly represent some very, very serious diagnoses, um, you would typically refer them either immediately to an emergency department or for outpatient follow-up. But in this case, it would be to an emergency department, and preferably an emergency department in a pediatric hospital, or if there's not a pediatric hospital nearby, um, a teaching hospital, um, so that they can be immediately evaluated by a pediatric neurologist, as well as the emergency department staff, have whatever tests are deemed necessary, which would be the usual blood work, but also an MRI of the spine to see if the cause of the paralysis is a tumor either in the spinal cord itself, or in a structure such as the spinal bone that's compressing the spinal cord.
But
Um,
in Gaza, they don't have any of that. And you talk about a makeshift clinic.
yeah, well, in Gaza, in Connecticut, with about the same population as Gaza, there are over 130 MRI centers, 130 MRI machines. In Gaza, before the genocide, there were seven, and now there are zero. Israel has destroyed or rendered non-functional all seven of the MRI machines. So this child would not have a diagnosis. They would have a suspected diagnosis or a plausible diagnosis, but they would not be able to confirm it.
And you talk about the ability of some patients to be brought to other countries. I think you mentioned Spain, but without the MRI, what's the problem?
So in my career, I've been on the receiving end of patients sent from other smaller hospitals, sometimes other countries, uh, for treatment at Yale New Haven Medical Center, which is where I practiced. And before we accept a patient in transfer's a big deal. And before we accept the patient, we want to know, or at least have a reasonable idea that we can help that patient. So we need a lot of information about what the diagnosis is, what the condition of the patient is, what treatments have already been done, and so forth. And so in a case like this, where the entire evaluation has consisted of being examined by a physician in a makeshift clinic, probably in a tent somewhere, with no lab work, no x-rays, no MRI. On my end, I cannot, with any degree of confidence, say that we can help this patient. So yes, we will accept them, send the patient to us. I would ask for information. In fact, I would insist on more information before we would agree to accept the patient. So for this child in Gaza, for whom there is no possibility of an MRI, and there's actually only one functional CAT scan machine, and so that would probably not be an option either. We can't accept this child, and I
Mm.
doubt that any other center would either. So they're stuck. They're stuck there, and if they do have one of these very serious diagnoses, they're going to have a bad outcome.
Mm.
And
Now,
the
we
parents
talk
just have to
about,
watch.
I'm
I
sorry.
was going to say the parents just have to watch them get worse and until they likely have a severe paralysis or perhaps even die from the condition if it's a malignancy that's causing it.
So we talk about countries that allow in Palestinians, but the United States, for one, doesn't allow it. Since last August, there was a complaint by blogger Laura Loomer about Palestinian children, and Trump and his administration just banned them from coming in. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. Um, it, it's shameful. It's absolutely shameful. It certainly reinforces the growing feeling around the world that we are not a hospitable country. If we can deny children health care simply because of their national identity or their racial or ethnic or religious identity. Um, and
Ralph
so
Nader wrote about this situation, and we are promoting enduring peace. Got a post from him. He was hoping that Connecticut Senator Blumenthal would complain about this. The fact that, even a burn victim or amputee, an infant, is not allowed into the United States. But so far, we've made no progress with Blumenthal.
yeah, unfortunately, Senator Blumenthal falls in that category that we refer to as PEP, Progressive Except for Palestine. He is a committed Zionist. He openly states that he's a committed Zionist, and he will not do anything that would put that in doubt or cause him problems with the Zionist community. And I make a very clear distinction between the Jewish community, which is not a community, just like the Black community, the any community actually is several communities with distinct attributes. And um, within the Jewish communities, there is a Zionist community for whom Israel can do no wrong, and Israel deserves absolutely everything that we can provide to them for what they say are their needs, both military and economic.
I wonder if you could tell me the latest about Physicians for Human Rights Israel and their attempt to get Dr. Abu Safia and other doctors released from Israeli prisons.
So there is a campaign, an international campaign uh, that recognizes that Israel, first of all, Israel has killed um, 1,722
Oh,
by the most recent count, which is a few months old already, healthcare workers. They have imprisoned hundreds of healthcare workers. There's a particular group of 14 to 18 physicians, depending upon who you're talking to, who have been imprisoned for as much as 700 days now. And these are absolutely vile, horrible places. They are tortured. They are slowly being starved to death. Some of them have lost half of their body weight. Dr. Abu Safia has lost somewhere between a third and a half of his body weight. Um, he's only been allowed in the year and a half since he was abducted, 5 visits from legal counsel. And the most recent one was a lawyer from Physicians for Human Rights Israel, and this was within the last couple of weeks, who reported that physically he looks very bad. There is now serious doubt as to how much longer he can actually survive. Um, for us who are talking about 18 physicians, two actually have died, but their bodies have never been released. One died in torture after being anally raped with a metal pole, um, causing serious internal damage that caused his death. So we are trying everything we can to get them out. There is actually um, a uh, a virtual webinar and rally that's happening later today, and I will give you the information for that. I'll send it to you electronically.
What
Uh,
I want to ask about the Physicians for Human Rights, they
okay.
petitioned the High Court.
Oh, I'm
What
sorry.
has
Yeah.
happened with that?
Okay. So after that visit, they PHRI, Physicians for Human Rights Israel, petitioned. Well, first of all, they petitioned the commander of the Israeli armed forces um, for release because that's who controls these prisons, and they've never gotten a response back. So they have now petitioned the High Court um, for a for the release, and there is a hearing that's actually scheduled. I believe it's next week on this issue. We're not very, and PHRI is not very optimistic that this will change things, but at least it will go on record if they do not act as saying that the highest court in Israel accepts the absolutely illegal and immoral detention of people whose only crime, none of them have been accused or indicted for any crime. Their only crime is taking care of patients in Gaza, and that's it.
Well, thank you very much for this interview.
All right, thank you.